Are we ready? Chat's back. Everything's back. Are we ready? Yes! All right. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Previously on Star Wars 40K, the Senate and Sharknado began their anime duel. Omega got a visit from the IRS, and Porto learned how to fly. Thank you, Robin. I know the fan uploaded galaxy-wide. I know. It's time. It's time, you guys. It's time. It's time for good times to rhyme with war crimes. It's time for all that stuff. I actually had everything ready to go. There has been so many things going on over here. You can see I pulled off the tape, everything like that. I got a couple places to touch up, but not too many. Actually, after the stream tonight, if I can, if I can not be harassed tonight, and can everybody hear me good right now? Just making sure. 1 second. Drag this over here a little bit closer. I haven't set up the mic stand yet, so I've got like the mic, and I don't have the original mic pod where I could set it up. War crime cats are already on it. So, shelf is going up, blackout shade's going up, art's gonna go up. It's all going up, okay? I just gotta let that dry back there. So I do apologize about the stream being late, guys. With everything being plugged up and replugged up, so like that, every once in a while something happens and a setting gets thrown, and then I'm sitting here trying to scramble to get it fixed. So, in this particular instance, my camera wouldn't focus, so I had to troubleshoot that. It is a long series of events. What is that? That's my work wire for my work microphone. Okay, there we go. It's hot. You're walking back in the cold for work, but this is worth it. We have the duel in front of us. It is here. The Radical Inquisitor versus the Sith. Who will come out on top? Yeah, the war crime cats are ready to fight. Always. Celestine. Stop hating. The manager ain't here. Alright. Michael. Okay. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. X in chat if you're ready to go. X in chat if you're ready to go. I've got everything sitting by. It's gotta be that time of year, so I got myself some of this. That's gonna be nice later on when I'm getting ready to assemble everything. I'm hoping to have this room the way I want it by this weekend. And when I get it finished, that's when I'm going to set up for oh God, I have been waiting to do this for so long. It's crazy. Yeah, growling war crimes are on. I can't wait to show this off. I really can't. It's been a long time coming, and it's finally here. It's going to require me to move this desk again, this computer setup again, but it'll be good. All right, it's time for good times to rhyme with war crimes. Oh, What do you want? Come here. It's time to say hey to everybody. Come here. Now, this kitty here, well, okay. She's being nursed back to health right now. Okay, you can get down, fine. It's okay. Go eat. Check the rat suggestions from Patreon soon. That's what I'm going to be doing, Helldrake. Helldrake this weekend is all going to be all about that. Alright, would I put a toilet in my AR? No! Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Alright, let's go. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Is there a reason you're so mad? Alright, here we go. Why are you so angry? Look, I understand. You wanted to go crusading with the Black Templars. It just wasn't in the cards. I'm sorry that the only thing we could get you was the Celestial Lions. I'm sorry, okay? It's not my fault that you didn't have your application in order when it was time to get on board with the crusade. But you can't go taking it out on everybody. I'm trying to run a show here. Can you please? God. Here we go.
The dark contest only intensified as Ayla's eyes closed. The dynamic functioning as though the contestants, subtly relieved from the pressure of the stage, were now free to unleash their most profane performances in the absence of an audience. The very fabric of the immaterial realm, itself composed of a tapestry woven with the stuff of souls and unfathomable powers, oscillated like a disturbed sea, churned in the wake of the Dark Lord and the Lord Inquisitor's confrontation. Two battles waged simultaneously, a war fought by flesh. Here, atop the twisting tower rising from the corpse head of Axum, and a war of minds and spirits projected onto the Sea of Souls like a foul, shared nightmare. But this was no dream, and the consequences of their ephemeral duel were by far the most relevant between the two. Tar's body collected his weapons, Sidious's mortal form revealing his twin sabers once more, throwing all they had at one another, launching themselves like foul lances, each angling for the destruction of the other. After images blurred the air as their speed and ferocity intensified, the gathering force of their dire contest signaling to all who could
that'll be
hear
fine. That'll
by
be just
emanating
fine.
thunder in the aftermath of each clash. Storm winds sang and swirled around them, churned into existence by their movements, and, more than anything else, their eldritch teachings, one colliding with the other. And yet, in spite of the great skill of their martial dance, it was not in the material world where the heart of their private war was waged. Indeed, the magnificent skill they displayed in swordplay was but the physical shadow cast by their more intense battle. A duel which was conducted in the invisible, roiling tides of the Sea of Souls. A sea they were fast befouling with their ever-burgeoning displays of black might and forbidden knowledge. It was into this realm that the Inquisitor funneled most of his power, for it was within the warp that his soul was strongest, especially without an ever-present horde of daemons waiting to prey upon him. Tarweiler's metaphysical essence radiated out from him like the glow of a dark, malevolent star, a power he tamed and channeled, his spiritual avatar becoming the semblance of a writhing serpent, its body swelling and sprouting limbs until he was a draconic, many-armed monstrosity, each hand wielding an eldritch artifact, representations and manifestations of dark desires and hidden fears he hardly dared to articulate, even to himself.
Hi, Locke.
Across from him, upon the warped battlefield presented by the netherworld of the Force, the spectral form of the dark Jedi sorcerer counterpoised Wyler's obvious might with a display of mystique. Far from a single, solid shape, the dark Jedi Master manifested himself as an ephemeral wraith of shadow, shrouded in an impenetrable mist of dense illusions.
So basically, from what I'm gathering in all this, Tar Wyler is the better duelist. He is more powerful than Sidious, but Sidious has control the likes of which the Tar Wyler can only ever imagine. Sidious's control is absolute, where Tar Wyler doesn't seem to have that much in the way of emotional restraint, and he doesn't have the fine-tuning that Sidious has.
As Tar made to approach, an ethereal cascade of spiritual replicas erupted into existence from the body of the strange Republic warlock, sprouting like dark flowers blooming forth in time-lapse.
Yeah, Galaxy.
The countless clones surrounded Wyler's avatar in a labyrinthian forest of deception, and he lashed out through them. Immediately, he could see they were insubstantial things, hardly worth the strength he put into striking them. Tar, focused, tried to narrow his view, to ferret out the black specter which held the true location of the soul he wished to sunder. Yet, no sooner had he disregarded the threat of the replicas than he found himself under attack from a torrent of sorcerous assaults. Blasted with warp lightning, the many-armed monster that was Tar Wyler thrashed, destroying several surrounding clones, but the illusions only laughed at his efforts. Rage spilled into Tar Wyler like an insidious internal bleed, the powerful Psyker recoiling from the scalding power which had been thrown into him. These cruel phantoms were designed to disorient. Their laughter and maddening whispers
Bell.
aimed to deceive and distract Tar Wyler, and all the while, he remained the target of an unseen fusillade of psychic daggers, each sparking blade hidden among the myriad false forms which the bizarre Jedi Master had conjured. The psychic terrain around Wyler had become a treacherous maze, and despite how powerfully or skillfully he cast out the net of his perceptions, he could not detect the true Dark Lord from the many facsimiles, each sorcerous phantom lashing out, seeking to strike at his very soul. The vast majority were far too impotent to do anything but appear hostile, but among them, the true Dark Jedi danced, diving in like an opportunistic scavenger at every presented opening. Strike after strike, the Imperial Inquisitor began to feel beleaguered, encircled by a suffocating snare of illusions which negated his superior strength by enabling the Dark Lord to avoid a direct confrontation with it. The eldritch trickery of the vile sorcerer twisted the warp around them, and as Tar's many arms rose and fell, chopping and cleaving at the army of illusions, he found that the actual foe he faced had made himself as mercurial and elusive as a wisp of smoke caught in a gale. Enough! Thought Tar Wyler, fortifying his resolve and drawing in his many limbs. His psychic avatar dripped with a rage that bordered on insanity, ashamed to be so tested and confounded by a weakling of the Republic.
See, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Anytime that Tar Wyler would have revealed his power in the past, whoever he was revealing it to is just like the Jedi on the ground right now. They are beaten, they are dead, they are destroyed. So, Sidious comes from a much different school. Anytime Sidious would reveal his power, he is legitimately in a life or death scenario. So Sidious's control is reactive, while Ty Waller is more proactive. It is quite literally the difference between a prey animal and a predator animal in terms of their ability, in terms of their sheer abilities, and their warp entities that he just talked about are representations of such. Tarweiler's is massive, threatening, huge, while Palpatine's is more like a wisp than anything else. The powers are still contained there, but one of them has been used to being the predator for his entire life, that being Tarweiler. Sidious, on the other hand, has been used to being a wolf in sheep's clothing in his entire life. Now, irregardless of the fact that, because Tarweiler is an Inquisitor, he could always radiate that fear. He had to hide the fact that he was Alpha Plus because not even the Inquisition would put him into that. Not even the Inquisition would put up with that, I don't think. But Sidious has had to hide everything from everyone. It is just like that. Galaxy-wide, Sidious is built to fight Psykers by himself, as opposed to Targa fights a lot of things, but is not used to being challenged. This is true. Tarweiler is not used to being challenged. He's used to people underestimating him. Now he's done the same thing. It also comes back to the martial styles and styles of basically force/warp manipulation that they've had to go through. Sidious has spent all of his adult life pretty much hiding the fact that he's a Sith from everyone around him. Tarweiler's done the same with him being the kind of Psyker that he is. It is such a thing. It is very, very. I love it. You don't agree that this context is completely different because Tar isn't alone. If he was by himself, he would have to do the same. He doesn't have to deal with a galaxy against him. He's an Alpha Plus Psyker. Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
If this Dark Lord of the Jedi sought to bewilder him and confound him into defeat, then Weiler would answer those deceptions with a calamity of his own. He braced, his form swelling as the army of fell, hissing ghosts around him stabbed and scorched him, ignoring the real damage amidst all of the illusions as he reached up with all of his many arms. The deceptive sorcerer sought to make the Imperial lose himself in a maze of mind traps and snares. But Tar categorically refused to play that kind of game, exhaling a torrent of power into the space around himself. Flexing his colossal psychic strength, he unleashed his raw, unbridled power into the warp. His avatar, now a towering colossus, opened each hand it had raised, dropping every weapon it had sought
Sidious
to
isn't
wield,
having fun.
and from its open palms blasted prismatic torrents of arcane fire. The power of his mind soul gushed out like maddening, malevolent rivers of energy, churning the
Make no
spirit
mistake,
sea
Sidious
around
is
them
fighting
into
for
a
his life right now.
boiling tempest. The very flesh of the Force itself convulsed under the assault. The fabric of the barrier between the material and immaterial tearing open to reveal rifts that bled into the sky above. A kaleidoscope storm of ever-changing, otherworldly colors. As the warp roiled and bubbled under Weiler's truly titanic expression of power, a wave of it swept out from him. The false replicas of the black-robed sorcerer disintegrating as it passed through them. Each spectral phantom burst into a rain of ephemeral
Locke, if they find an Alpha Plus Psyker, the Inquisition will go out of its way to kill them as soon as possible. There is no other way to say it. The Inquisition would target anything higher than a Beta Psyker and attempt to kill it as soon as possible. Mr. Galaxy, another point about is how they perceive their powers. Tarweiler is to break the warp to his will, but Sidious embodies the dark side and its will. Sidious flows with it. Yeah, Galaxy-wide, I agree.
ashes Obliterated by the cascading tsunami of psychic force Tar was pushing out. Within moments, the labyrinth of shadowy deceptions was no more, leaving only the very real Witch Lord in its wake, his wraith-like form exposed amidst the settling warp. Inquisitor Tarweiler inhaled the heady ether of the spirit world, his avatar suddenly shrouded in billowing plumes of obsidian smoke. The form of the black-clad sorcerer raised his shadowy hands, casting forth twin branching columns of force lightning. The obsidian shroud of smoke caught the reaching, scratching claws of the rare witch's ruinous power. The lightning intermingling with the black clouds,
Alpha Plus Psykers
but failing to
aren't
reach
that
the
bad.
man behind them. The grin on Weiler's serpentine lips flared wide as he burst through the smoke and sparking powers of the Dark Lord, leaping towards the unusual Jedi, arms outstretched and prepared to flay him as the sorcerer stood before the encroaching form of the Inquisitor's avatar. The Dark Lord was a mere shadow against the stormy backdrop of the warp, and yet that shadow almost gave Tar pause, if for no other reason than from how inexplicably and relentlessly vivid it seemed to be. The Inquisitor's opponent was so dark, so solid, that he seemed a void, one Tar began to doubt his attacks could reach. The suspicion proved itself prophecy as Weiler lashed out wildly, his claws and weapons failing to scratch the sorcerer, for it was not the Witchling Lord that he was attacking. Serpent eyes almost crossing, the demonic shape that Tar Weiler had taken for his own moved to the left and realized that he had been fooled. The potent sorcerer having literally twisted the backdrop of the warp to cast his own silhouette upon the horizon.
Nice.
And into it he had fled and vanished. Tar roared, quaking the spirit realm, knowing that the perfidious sorcerer remained near, a fact proven by their still ongoing physical contest. Casting soul-born eyes across the shifting, cloud-like landscape which surrounded him, Tar desperately sought the dark essence of the Witch Lord. But as before, he could not find it before it was ready to strike again, emerging from his own shadow to lance a blade of lightning through his body. An act Tar repaid by smashing his colossal fists into his own shadow. But by then, the Dark Lord had vanished back into it and was gone.
Okay, so I've seen a lot of questions about... does anybody not know the classes of Psykers in 40k and what they basically can and can't do? If you don't know and want me to explain it to you, just hit X and post the X, because I'll give you an explanation of what's going on. Because if you don't understand why an Alpha Plus Psyker is one of the most dangerous things in the entirety of the Imperium. Okay, so if you're looking for distinct draws about power level, there are several different classes of Psyker that go. I think the lowest class, if I'm remembering right, is Epsilon. And your average Jedi Master is only going to be somewhere in the Charlie to Beta range. Your average Jedi Master is going to be Charlie to Beta range. Now, that's pretty much consistent, okay? Based off what you've seen. So Obi-Wan Kenobi would be considered probably a Gamma class Psyker. Magnus would be an Alpha Plus. So in terms of ability, the most powerful Psykers are Alpha Plus. But Alpha Plus is kind of like you have defined things, you have defined things. But if you're looking at the classes of Psyker that are in if you're looking at the classes of Psyker in the Imperium as to what they are capable of. It's kind of like the Fujita scale for tornadoes, okay? You have F0, F1, F2, F3, F4, F5. But an F5 tornado starts off at a certain range and it has no upper limit. That is Alpha Plus, okay? Now, even the least powerful an Alpha Plus can get is utterly terrifying. They can take over entire subsectors just on a whim. They can do it on an absolute whim. The upper limit to them is something like the Emperor. The Emperor would be considered Alpha Plus Psyker, but at the same time, your average Alpha Plus Psyker that is born in the Imperium is to the Emperor as they are to Gammas. It's the power scaling difference is that severe. That's how powerful the Emperor is in comparison to your standard run-of-the-mill Alpha Plus Psyker. But the Inquisition, just because of how absolutely dangerous Psykers are, if you are born as a Beta class Psyker, the Inquisition's coming for you. Much less Alpha Plus. They're going to be coming after you. They're going to be coming after you to kill you, because they're going to be coming after you to kill you or just capture you if they're able to. If you're young enough to be captured, they're going to take you. You're not staying with your family. There's no Hallmark movie moment here. You're leaving. Most Psykers, irregardless, are going to get taken to the Hall of Whispers on Terra, on the Black Ships. But if you're a Beta class Psyker, you're probably going to... You run a 50% chance of dying. Alpha class Psykers run a 95% chance of dying. Alpha Plus class Psykers are almost always killed, with excessively, and I mean excessively, few examples. The Sensei would have been probably Alpha Plus level. Now, with Tar Weiler being an Alpha Plus Psyker, he could be the most... This is what you'd expect. But something you have to understand... All the Jedi that we have seen so far, this is the reason that as soon as I heard Alpha Plus, I started dying laughing. Because based off the power scale that I have seen so far in the comparison and what I've seen off Legends and everything else, your average Jedi Master that sits on the Council is Beta to Gamma. Beta to Gamma. And no more powerful than that. There are no Alpha class. Are no comparisons to Alpha class Psykers. Definitely no Alpha Plus. That's just the way of it. Here we go. But I'm loving this comparison of fighting styles. Really, yeah. Alpha Plus is too dangerous to risk keeping alive for any reason. Probably Diclonius, probably, and they taught him how to hide. They taught him how to hide it. Yoda himself would be Beta class as a whole. Windu is not Alpha. Windu is just a really excessively good duelist. Danny, that's true. That's older lore, though. Anakin actually would be Alpha. He would be Alpha before he turned to the dark side, before he got hurt. He might have begun to approach Plus, but he isn't there. Now, if he had been trained by Sidious without getting chopped in half, yeah. What if a chapter gets Librarian Alpha Plus Psyker? Then that chapter just ends most wars they come across instantaneously. Librarians are typically Charlie. So, the librarian that beat the brakes off of all the Jedi earlier on, he was at best Gamma. He was not that strong psychically. Let's see. Would the God Emperor be Alpha? The God Emperor will be he's off the scale, dude. He is absolutely off the scale. The scale also includes blanks, yes. And as a Psyker, demons will speak to you. They will love you. Primarchs are not always Alpha Plus. In fact, some of them aren't even psychically gifted at all. They just have specific abilities. All right, let's go. Locke, we can have this debate, but you'll lose it. You will lose it. Here we go.
Time and time again, Tar was finding his power and techniques blunted by the endless diversions. The Republic Warlock was able to place between himself and the Inquisitor. Grimacing with resolve, Tarweiler's monstrous spirit form reared, psychic membranes of the netherworld rupturing as he did, clouds exploding into flame and changing colors all about him. This Jedi thing thought he could hide in the Inquisitor's own shadow? Tar could see the logic. For the darkness the Imperial harbored was the equal of any light within the Imperial.
Actually, no, Revan, the real truth of the matter is that Sidious right now is actually holding his own against an Alpha Plus Psyker, which, once I started listening to it, I was like, yeah, most definitely this is possible. The thing about Force users are, however, they're able, because Sidious was not this powerful initially. He was never this power initially. He gained this power over time. That is what the Force does in Star Wars versus 40k. In 40k, if you're an Alpha Plus Psyker, you were born that way. Sidious was not born able to drag starships out of the sky and blast entire sectors. He wasn't born that way. He had to learn how to be that way. Thanks. I would also take the experience and speciality intimate into the question. The librarians had century to hone their skills versus the Jedi decades. True. Battle Psykers are usually, like I said, Gamma to Beta.
He served, and that served him. So he, in place of reaching in to root him out, destroyed the shadow utterly, roaring with a mind throat wide enough to swallow several men whole as he burst into radiance. His shadow snuffed as he became the center of his own glow. The Dark Lord was caught by the sudden change, thrown roughly from the once shade of Tarweiler's heart, and cast tumbling through the warped space their souls occupied. The sorcerer landed roughly, rolling, body expanding, form shifting into an arachnoid shape. His spectral appendages reaching out to right himself, weaving crimson webs of devious complexity as he leapt and tumbled 8 legs in constant motion. To Weiler's surprise, the warp seemed to obey him. The tumultuous energy curling and spiraling in resonance with each thread the transformed Witchlord wove. "You'll not catch me in your traps twice!" snarled Tar, his avatar form fluctuating, once a monster, then a dragon, then an amorphous cloud of teeth and jaws and flaring eyes. In his new, storm-like form, he unleashed a hurricane of screaming black bolts towards the deceptive web that was, even then, being wrapped to surround the Inquisitor. The sky was seared with bursts of undulating warp energy as Tarweiler sought to express the extremity of his power once more, throwing out attacks in every direction. The Midnight Sorcerer, hidden once more, smirked within the shadows, shrouding his soul, which lounged easily within, bearing little fear and no trepidation as he watched on. His webs folded inward like a crimson collapsing star, catching and swallowing the doom bolts and turning them into shimmering dust and bright blue warp fire.
This is the difference between somebody that has to not use their power to avoid the things that will talk to them versus somebody that's been able to do it their whole damn life. It's lovely.
The insidious strands were now revealed to be twice as numerous as the Inquisitor had expected. For, paired with every glowing crimson web, had been a hidden thread, invisible in the light cast out by Tarweiler's shadow-eating brilliance. The rending webs closed, entrapping the Inquisitor, using his own strength, his own warp might, to crush and destroy him. Yet, Tar Weiler was no novice, nor even a master. He was a prodigy, born to walk the warp. And, sweating blood from a myriad of inhuman eyes, the Inquisitor managed to counter his own previous power with
raspberries,
something greater. Eyes still bleeding radiant blood, each one growing wider and brighter every moment. Tarweiler became a spinning star of bladed light and utter brilliance. Countless streams of silver, solar radiance pouring out from him in cascades which collided with the glowing walls of eldritch webs. Those brilliant rivers clashed and screeched against the enclosure of crimson light that the Sorcerer Lord had set upon him. The powers resisted each other, Tar preventing himself from being unmade by the trick, but still held in place, pinned like a superheated ball of silvered steel upon wraithbone webs. The witch's voice echoed out as the Inquisitor struggled, words forming from the bleak array of warp shadows that surrounded them.
Inquisitor, your strength is impressive, but it becomes your weakness when you wield it so brutally. And worse, it makes you predictable. What good is light when you are so bright that you are blinded by it?
Mocked the Dark Master of the Jedi, braying his words like a demon hidden in the mists of Tar's own mind. Tar Weiler roared his response once more, his bladed sun avatar quaking with the sound. The wretched heretic smirked, knowing that he had the Inquisitor in a snare that would cost him much to escape, no matter how he raged. He knew this until Tar made him know differently.
Okay.
The bellow let loose by the Inquisitor did not end. It only magnified, increased, and stretched out. The warp trembled. The dark side squealed like a rabid beast suddenly struck. And the Dark Master felt his smile dry out and die on his fanged lips as the bladed radiance of the sword sun Tar Weiler had become grew bright and brighter. Its light and touch composed of countless, ephemeral and invisible silver razors. Lifting his right arm to shield himself, the sorcerer hissed and fell back and away, shreds torn from his form before he could slink into darkness. Tar's expression of power soared, reversing the snare's strength and breaking it. The webs shattering like blood-colored glass threads, the silver sun expanding before fading, revealing Tar Weiler not as a monster, a star, or even the man he appeared to be in the flesh, but as the man he actually was.
Tony.
His masks torn away by
Like, if I was the Jedi right now, I'd be shitting myself.
the breadth of his struggle. Tar heaved breaths into his chest and scowled, lines drawing deeply across the natural human visage of his ordinary face. Anger welled up in the Inquisitor like blood pooling in his heart, realizing that each strike made by the dueling sorcerer was a calculated mockery, a lesson intended to teach him futility. The heretical Jedi was able to hide his presence in the warp so well that it was blatantly shocking. For while Tar had faced more powerful psychic entities before, the list was not extensive, and this kind of power
even the demon is stopping right now. I'm looking at him like, what the hell?
kind that could be casually hidden. This blasphemous Psyker felt like he should be weaker than Tar in every way, and yet, through the odd breadth of his technique, and the strange way in which the witch interacted with the Force. The Dark Lord had not only been able to survive,
skill
but to truly contend
versus
with
power.
him. Standing before one another, physical bodies and souls met and overlaid. Tar snarled hideously at the sorcerer, who stood still and straight, face shadowed and unreadable with an incantation.
Jose, don't even bring up Ayla right now. Ayla's whole she needs so much therapy right now. It's pathetic, okay? She needs so much therapy right now. It's beyond words.
That spat in the face of both the warp and the laws of real space. Tar Weiler began to speak, raising his hands into a spread-fingered aquila over his chest. Libera Diabolis, Imperius Ignis. His voice resonated through the warped reality they themselves were twisting, his words tearing the scant tranquility asunder.
Oh my
like
God.
the last scream of a Drukhari slave echoing into nothing. The phantom threads of the spirit world convulsed as a cavorting maelstrom of black flames surged into life, bursting from the cloudy, mostly shrouded ground they seemed to stand upon. The torrents rushed up, a perfect circle around the Inquisitor, rocketing into the sky and arcing down, honing in on the Republic Warlock with cataclysmic intent. The Dark Lord, exuding an air of indomitable arrogance, thrust out his clawed hands, waving them back and forth as he rasped an incantation in the gravelly tones of Katat.
Huzrat Zol Talas Manuta, Nuta Falan Ra.
He hissed, forming an arcane triangle with a sharp flick of his wrists, hands coming together.
The Kokoho takes too much energy.
The flames recoiled and metamorphized into a vibrant tempest of crackling lightning.
To be quite honest with you, to be absolutely honest with you, Confused Guardsman, Sanguinius would not be able to fight an Alpha Plus Psyker. It would not be able to happen.
Arcing menacingly back towards its creator.
The dark side's poetry is written into every shadow you wish to bend to yourself. And of the two of us, only one is the Dark Lord.
The Witch Lord taunted,
Damn,
reveling
son!
in the symphony of Dunmok, a song he continued to sing. But Tar was far from cowed, lines creasing his human face. Folding his hands over his chest in a proper, close-fingered aquila, he began to chant hastily. Salvatri turnum impersene! Vestre lumine protegam! As he finished speaking, he knelt down and bowed his head, a halo of resplendent light searing into life over him, and then expanding violently and rapidly around him, barely shielding the Inquisitor from the onslaught of rechanneled warp energy.
Thank you, Mr. Galaxy Watt. If Fan really wants to get crazy, he could bring out the Supernatural Encounters Lord and imagine a token Lord or Star Wars. Justin, God, man, this AI animation is really warpy. Hatred. Yeah, the Dark Lord of Burns. Yes, he is. Thank you, Sun God. Thank you, Mr. Galaxy Watt. The Eldar would roll their eyes and be like, stupid Monkai. That's what they would say.
It was a precarious barrier, trembling under the malevolent craftsmanship of the Republic Warlock's magic, and Tar's own subverted power. Gritting his teeth, his normally black eyes alight with the hues of red and yellow, Tar's form undulated wildly, strained, but ultimately emerged unharmed for the most part. He snapped his hands forward, forming esoteric symbols between his fingers, moving them precisely through the air. Your words tire me, Jedi! Tar yelled, boiling with warp-infused wrath. He opened his mouth and began to speak, unleashing another potent expression of his stolen sorceries. Demonis Casa! Armana Senatora Eternus Tenebrissa! He left his mouth open after the last syllable left his lips, and from his gaping maw erupted long arms, ending in spindly fingered hands.
Dude, why?
They reached down, grabbing his face and shoulders and using them as leverage to pull themselves entirely free of his mouth and throat. Each shadowy, streaming monstrosity lurching towards the awed Jedi. Each becoming bolts of pure warp energy as they did. Each screaming missile a microcosm of impending soul annihilation. Remaining
Tar would have no reason to know anything about the Sith. He has no reason to know anything.
Flinchingly calm, the Archwitch raised his hands, geometric gestures forming between them. In the archaic Balk tongue, the voice of the Shadow Masters and Chaos Callers, he began to direct the world.
Gatok oslictos in la siratatat.
He said, his hands spinning intricate sigils in the air more and more rapidly, and as he did, time seemed to move more and more slowly. Becoming sluggish in the air, the missiles revealed their profane shapes more distinctly as they were brought to a near halt by the sorcerer and his continuous chanting. His words never letting up, he pointed to one, and then to another, and then pointed to a place in the air. Time resumed in full for those two missiles, but they veered away from him, both flying through the same point in the air at the same time and colliding.
Thank you, Deathcore Krieg. These can I recommend some 40k books for starters because you're about to get Amazon Audible. The Caiaphas Cain series is great. Gaunt's Ghosts is absolutely fantastic. I would highly recommend Gaunt's Ghost. Gaunt's Ghost is a excellent introduction for people. The Eisenhorn Omnibus is an excellent introduction for people. So those would be the three that I'd recommend, bud.
The two living warp weapons destroyed each other in the collision, and soon, so too did all of the others as the Dark Lord, chanting all the while, pointed at more of them, and then sent them flying into different places around him in the air. The last one, which had no partner to collide with, he chose to absorb, and with dark artistry, the Witch Lord melded the screaming pseudo-spirit into a spiraling vortex of chaotic energy between his palms, toying with it like one might with a trained mouse. The vastly powerful sorcerer grinned malevolently at the power before gripping...
Radite, Palpatine claps Horus mercilessly. Okay? Wait. Palpatine claps pre-heresy Horus mercilessly.
...it with a sudden turn of his wrist and snuffing it out. Impressive, Tar Weiler admitted, his eyes locking on to the Witch Lord's own, which shimmered with a molten, malevolent luster. I had no idea that your republic held such masters of the warp within it. You are nothing like the other Jedi. Even their mightiest could not have matched me like this. The Inquisitor elaborated, chest heaving as he took deep, steadying breaths.
Okay.
The Dark Lord's face twitched at the words. Standing across from him, though he took in the praise readily, his hidden existence making the recognition of his skill and power a rare enough thing, especially among other users of the dark side of the Force. That said, he took no pleasure in being conflated with the Jedi.
Inquisitor Weiler, your power swells like a raging storm, a near elemental force, and you do not wield it without skill or training. But your former masters have failed you. Your potential remains unrefined.
Yes!
You could be so much more. You could be so much more. if you entrusted yourself to the teachings of a true master.
The sorcerer purred.
Wait
The
a
total
minute.
harmony of his voice contrasting sharply with the churning energies of the warp that surrounded them. Around and behind the two, the mists and clouds of the netherworld
Okay.
slowly spun, lighting from within and without with energized streams of purple, red, and blue lightning.
They just respected each other. They just respected each other. Is tartar sauce gonna happen? Is Creamy Sheev and Tar Weiler gonna get together to make Team Tartar Sauce?
These demonic discharges echoed with the crack and howls of more than just thunder. But none of those noises or displays could distract the two dark masters from each other.
Revan, Sidious is fighting for his life at this point. Sidious is fighting for his life against a much more powerful opponent. But Sidious is so damned good. It is honestly like, oh my god, Tarweiler has all this ability, but none of the polish that Sidious has. He doesn't have a fraction of that control.
And I suppose you would be such a master.
No
Tar
shit, Sherlock.
asked with a hideous, humorless laugh, his soul-born avatar shifting back into the appearance he currently held in his mortal life.
Do not fool yourself, dog. I would rather extract your teachings from your screaming throat than hear them from your lying, placating lips. Meager words will not shift me, and they will not win you this losing war.
Tar retorted. The Witch Lord nodded, shrugging.
Spoken truly enough. Yet words are such intriguing devices, aren't they? They can shift the tides of wars even if they cannot win them. Alter the course of destiny even if they cannot alone direct them.
The sorcerer explained.
Why don't we pause this confrontation for the moment and explore the other weapons at our disposal? Our words.
The Inquisitor paused, hesitating
Okay.
at the suggestion.
Unless, of course, you fear my meager words might actually defeat you.
The witch added with the hint of a wizened grin beneath the shadow cloak of his raised hood. Tarweiler scowled, though he inwardly welcomed the brief hiatus. Although the ways of the Force were unfamiliar to him, the dark sorceries the Republic Warlock wielded were not unlike the psychic abilities known in his galaxy. Tar had underestimated him, had held back and preserved himself from his most potent techniques in a mistaken belief that his superiority over this dark figure would be like that of the other Jedi. Clearly that was not
Yeah.
the case, and the moment his foe now offered him would allow the Inquisitor to recuperate his strength and examine his options, even if the tension between them remained thick enough to cut with a
Emperor.
monomolecular edge.
Yeah, Galaxy-wide fun fact, Sidious loved adrenaline rush before he became a Sith Lord. He enjoyed racing and gambling for the rush and thrill of it. Yep. Yep.
As I see it, your potential is squandered, Inquisitor.
The sorcerer resumed when Tar said nothing, his voice a sibilant whisper that carried more than a hint of menace.
You are powerful, so powerful, and yet you falter. You fail.
Yep.
Tar's face creased.
Your words will find no purchase here. Your lies are meaningless.
The Inquisitor hissed.
You are a mere road bump, barely a true hindrance. With every moment that passes, I grow closer to my victory. And your pathetic republic draws nearer to its doom.
When is Palpatine gonna tell him he doesn't give two shits about the Republic?
What? You think that because some of your Jedi techniques can stall for time, it means anything? The Imperium will not be stopped. I cannot be stopped. Not by false men, or politicians, or your witch warriors, and your precious weakling Jedi Order.
Tar snarled, his eyes narrowing in tight, channeled hatred, before suddenly being brought up short, his words choking from his mouth. He reached up to his throat, fingers scrabbling at a bind he could not reach. And, eyes wide, he realized his mistake. He had allowed this old man to get into his head, to create through frustration and anger a pin-sized opening in Tar's mental defenses.
There you go.
One which the sorcerer had shattered open, enwreathing Tar in a noose of telekinetic power. But soon it became apparent that Tar had not been the only one frustrated. A spark of uncontrolled anger flared in the witch's eyes. A churning sea suddenly whipped into a tempest behind the fires held within each iris.
Your
Slacking.
ignorance is becoming difficult to tolerate, Tar of the Imperium. So much so that it appears I must begin your education before formality can be observed. Hear this, know this, and remember well your first lesson.
Spoke the Dark Lord,
Calling him slacking, yeah.
forward, one hand extended out, gesturing as though gripping an invisible throat. Tar struggled, his feet leaving the ground as he was raised off his legs, held by his throat as a torrent of malevolent energy seared him invisibly. He was not only being choked, but crushed, and not just physically.
Pain?
He tried to calm his mind. Duels, even against gods, could be won if their opponent knew how to throw them off balance and into a precarious situation. Tar had been lured into just such a trap.
Yep.
And panicking or losing control to fury or pain would not save him while he was trapped in this vice. Slowly, but surely, Tar began to build his strength again, sliding it like slick fingers under the coils of the witch's constricting might.
I am no Jedi, and my order is not to be compared to theirs.
The sorcerer spat, his voice laced with indignation as Tar gasped and hung in the air before him.
I am the Sith Lord of this galaxy, a master of the dark side of the Force. A lineage distinguished and separate from the simpering idealists you dare to mistake me for. Inflate us at your own peril, for I shall not forgive such ignorance a second time.
Nice.
The Inquisitor
Nice.
grit his teeth, glaring at the Dark Lord, noting the Sith's fleeting loss of self-control and taking advantage of it.
Your semantics mean little to me. Your labels will be forgotten by history.
Tar growled and gasped past his clenched, shark-like teeth. A bright light
Yep.
surrounded his throat as he pushed with his considerable strength against the Sith Lord. The witch did not seem perturbed by the effort, for no one had ever escaped this technique by their own might, at least not in the Sith's experience. That experience changed as the blue ring of light suddenly seemed to expand and burst all at once, rupturing the telekinetic bond violently and driving a pained hiss from the Sorcerer Lord, his hand cracking and twisting agonizingly.
Ooh.
Tarweiler dropped to his feet, extending his hands out in his own brutally powerful telekinetic vice, slamming kilotons of force into his rival, both from above, his sides, his back, and his front. But this creature did not crumple into nothing, did not even fold like Ayla Sakura had. Tarweiler exerted himself more powerfully, veins bulging, but the Sith Lord did not even waver.
You see, this is the thing. 40K, Psykers have nothing like the Force techniques. They have nothing like that. They just... It's a different method of using mental strength. But with the Force, they can it's the difference between, oh god. I love the comparison between Force Chuck, such a rudimentary ability that we all know. That is so yeah.
Even as the ground beneath his feet buckled and the tower split and melted around the spot.
Yeah, we forgot about Alien again.
Tar felt his heart racing, for he was truly exerting himself. Atoms smashing in sparks that nearly became nuclear detonations from the pressure he exerted. And yet, there he stood, smiling, unbothered. How was it possible? How powerful was this Sith Lord to shrug off such a force? And then Tar felt it. A hand resting upon the back of his head, fingers extending over his scalp, grasping gently as the illusion he had been trying to destroy vanished before his eyes like a desert mirage brought close. Tar ceased his exerting, heart beating in his ears. When had the Sith Lord slipped away? How had he not noticed, not seen?
You know, deep inside.
The Witch Lord said, voice resonating as if from inside Tar's own head.
That you cannot succeed.
Hissed the Sith Lord. Tar felt sweat
Yeah,
building
Alberto.
on his bald head between the fingers laid across his pale cranial skin. Was he fast enough? Was he powerful enough to stop him even now? Even gods could be slain and devoured by mere children if conditions were met. This Tar knew well.
But you do not have to stand against me.
Whispered the Dark Lord.
You can kneel. You can learn.
Tarweiler struggled to control his breathing, his heart's own hammering, making hearing the words alone difficult. He sighed out a hiss, dropping his hands slowly to his sides, his left falling over a specific part of his robe. There, within an inner pocket, was a device which may yet save him, but he could not reach it directly. Feeling his guts roil with tension, Tar began to speak as his left hand slowly closed around the vague imprint of the object, gradually squeezing it, trying to activate it.
Betray the Emperor. Betray mankind. Do you think you are the first witch to try to tempt me from the path?
Tar spoke, each word enunciated with cold clarity, challenging the Sith Lord even now, hoping to keep his focus.
Ah, loyalty and duty, such noble concepts, but even they have their price.
The witch whispered, drawing closer, his voice resonant.
You're no stranger to the corruption that eats away at your Imperium. The stagnation, the ineffable sense that it is all crumbling away. With me, you could not only save it, but reshape it, rule it.
That is impossible. The Imperium of Man serves only the Emperor, the Emperor's son and Lord Commander, and the Inquisition which safeguards it. No one man has controlled the Imperium for over 10,000 years.
He is tempted.
If it is not the Emperor, then it is not possible.
Tar shot back, his voice tinged with an emotion he seldom allowed. Temptation. Tarweiler felt the weight of the Sith's grasp tighten.
Ah, are you truly too beguiled by the illusion of untouchable divinity?
The Witch Lord murmured, his words seeming to echo.
Even gods can be supplanted, Inquisitor, through the power of the dark side. All things are possible.
As the heretic spoke, Tar felt the object in his pocket pressing against his palm, his fingers squeezing tighter and tighter, sliding over it, looking for the activation rune on its elliptical shape. He internally cursed Eldar finger strength and continued to squeeze as he replied.
Only a fool replaces one god for another, believing that his new master will liberate him.
Tar responded,
Yeah, that's Zinch laughing,
his tone
apparently.
a calculated blend of disdain and reluctant curiosity, as if the very idea nauseated him even while it intrigued.
I am not asking you to trade gods, Tarweiler. I am asking you to open your eyes and realize that you could become a god, that you deserve to become a god, that anything less would be unworthy of you.
Hissed the Sorcerer Lord.
You make impressive promises, but even large words are cheaply made. Within
I
the
love it.
Imperium, I am a lord. I am master of countless.
Tarweiler began to say.
You are an expendable asset, one which must hide his true power and his right to divinity to appease a culture of backward savages.
The Witch Lord replied swiftly,
I'm loving it.
cutting through Tarweiler's words.
The Emperor might not even recognize your sacrifice, your unending service, but I would. Under my tutelage, you would wield the sort of power that eclipses what the God Emperor would ever deign to grant you. Search your feelings, Inquisitor
Search
Weiler.
your
I know
feelings!
this to be true.
As the Sith's words sought to corrode his loyalty, Tarweiler felt his fingerprints finally compress the rune on the Eldar jump disc which was concealed in his inner pocket. A sensation like an icy breeze blew over him, tingling his spine. As soon as he released the button, it would activate, likely for the last time.
I have seen the ruin that follows men who trade loyalty for promises of power. Their souls scream in a rightly earned and perpetual damnation.
Nice.
Tar spat, making sure every syllable carried the weight of irrefutable fact.
I will not be one of them.
Tar released his grip on the
Literally
device
War Spider,
just
yeah.
as he felt the Witch Lord's grasp tighten once more, sinking his nails painfully into Tarweiler's bald scalp. As if the Sith Lord had sensed the impending turn, the universe folded in on itself for a mere second in Tarweiler's eyes, and the Inquisitor vanished from the Sith's grasp, reappearing 30 feet away, body smoking somewhat, and 5 shallow, bloody red lines drawn over his skull. Tar turned and grinned, some of the skin around his neck burnt into twisting lines, but not by much. Some blood still dripped from the Sith's fingers as he turned to face the Inquisitor, the Sith's hand still outstretched. Weiler flared his nostrils as he sensed the confusion, and then dark anger of the Sith Lord, whose lips scrunched as he snarled like a predator denied its kill.
That was close.
Tarweiler exclaimed, standing now at a distance, his telepathic barriers fortified once more.
But unlike you, it's not mere tricks and ambition that sustain me. It is conviction.
A shadow flitted across the Sorcerer Lord's eyes.
Conviction. I too have conviction. The conviction required to remold the universe itself. Your parlor tricks will not save you, regardless of what you choose to call them.
The Witch Lord retorted, but the snarl that had accentuated his malevolence was curiously absent now.
Silence! I will hear no more from you. Your words and your lies, they are nothing but distractions. And I do not want to be distracted when I am pulling your wretched body apart.
Tar Weiler sneered,
Oh my
his physical
God.
body gripping his black rapier with renewed vigor.
Come for me, sorcerer! Show me the power of this force you think you control!
Challenged the Inquisitor. Both warriors squared their shoulders, bracing for the next furious exchange. The
Yep.
space between them felt more charged than ever before, like an even larger tempest was about to be unleashed. However, just before that storm could break, a new aberration emerged. Out from the shadows of the twisted, broken tower, and behind Tar's back, a skittering mechanism of gears and circuits burst forth. Omni Kraden extended his metallic limbs into a myriad of directions, moving even as he launched himself, body angling to catch the Inquisitor's profile. Before he even understood what had happened, Tar was encased once again, this time not by the forceful grasp of the Sith Lord, but by the cold, unyielding appendages of the Tech Priest. Before the witch could even attempt to counter, Omni Kraden's array of mechanized limbs constricted, pulling Tar
Tech
into
boys
its midst
here.
like an arachnid securing its prey. In those same moments, a mechanical whir sounded, whining while an industrial antenna emerged from the centipede-like mechanoid's back, extending skyward and flashing from its bulb-like tip. Clearly, this had been prepared beforehand, for while the Sith moved quickly, raising his arms and hands to fire forth a deadly stream of warp lightning, he did not move quite quickly enough. A wave of ethereal energy pulsated from the mechanism the antenna had extended from. A distant teleportarium coming to life, already locked onto the coordinates. The air distorted, waving as if in intense heat, a sickening rainbow of colors flashing from the spot just as the lightning reached them. And then, in a burst of disorienting sound and sensations, both Omni Kraden and Tar Weiler vanished, leaving behind only the echoes of a battle left unfinished.
Okay, that was... The Mechanicus can use suckers, but they use them for different things. Yes, this is not over. No, it would depend on how powerful the Sister of Silence is. And here's the thing. Okay, so from what I'm seeing here, the Force users are capable of, with their technique, heightening their ability to use the Force. Psykers, on the other hand, they don't have anything quite like that. That's how Sidious is able to stand up against an Alpha. That's, in my opinion, how Sidious is able to stand up against an Alpha Plus Psyker. That would be my thought. Do I think the Emperor could kill all the Jedi currently alive? Yes and no. Yes and no. It would depend. There's got to be a statement for technique. There's got to be an absolute statement for technique. That was absolutely crazy. Yes, Galaxy Wide, you're exactly right. That is the major difference between the two. Psykers have to be constantly worried about using their power. Constantly. Jedi can use it on a whim. So, the potential for refinement is just monstrous compared to any Psyker that could be out there. So the Psyker could be as powerful as they want to. Sidious tap danced all over him. And the difference between them wasn't power, it was control. It was absolute control.
Darth Sidious looked at the spot where his would-be apprentice had stood just moments before. His left fist clenched, not from the flushed feelings of any defeat, but from the realization that his suddenly disrupted game may yet prove interesting in its own novel way.
Yes, Tony.
The Inquisitor had been tested, had been offered power and shown enough of it to whet his appetite. Now, all the Dark Lord needed to do was wait and see if his seedling, so carefully planted, bore fruit. Left alone among the ruins, the Witch Lord of the Galactic Republic, the secret Dark Master of the Jedi Order, saw that he was still not truly alone. Unconscious or dead Jedi yet lay strewn about the corrupted heights of the tower he and Tar Weiler had formed in the process of their spiritual and telekinetic battle. Most notably of all, Ayla Secura, now passed from the waking world, yet lived, and Sidious knew she had seen him. Perhaps she had not been able to piece together that he had come as part of the Republic's response, but he doubted even the Jedi were so blind as to not notice his timing. He briefly considered slaying her, here and now, and quickly, before he departed. None would question it. All would lay it at the feet of Tar Weiler and the Imperium. Yet he stayed his hand, absorbing the scene fully. A crooked smile slid over his face, seeing that he had planted 2 seedlings here, not 1. If the Jedi threatened his plans, he had ample ways of dealing with her. And if she sprouted and grew the dark fruit he had planted, then she would be worth the risk many times over.
Yep.
Sidious was not the greatest tactician in the galaxy, but he was the greatest planner and schemer the stars had ever seen. And already he could sense what role her careful placement might fulfill in the future. And so, standing amidst the debris of a battle interrupted, the Sith Lord resolved to take no more lives. New moves awaited, and his galactic game of Dejeric was far from over.
Ayla.
Even as the opening gambits met their conclusions. But there were still 1 or 2 more moves to play out. This, Sidious felt with no uncertainty. His eyes arcing up towards a ship in the far distant sky, so distant as it drifted in orbit that it could not be plainly seen at all. There, in the void, invisible, but so close, darkness was spreading, was taking root, and it was not just there either. Sidious then turned his burning yellow eyes towards the horizon, viewing from his tower the streak of arterial red which had been left behind by a blood-drenched storm. Like a crimson road carved through the spires of Axum's planet-wide city, leading towards a howling tempest which was, like the ship, far beyond his physical view, but well within the reach of his preternatural senses. This was only the first battle, but as with all opening moves, it, once concluded, would set the stage for the rest of the game. Already fates had shifted irrevocably, both in this dimension and in others nearby. There was no going back now, and embracing the power of change, Sidious straightened his robe and began to make his way towards the edge of the tower. He was the master behind this war, the Republic, and the Empire that would rise in its wake. By this, he would shape and control the future through his strength and new, twisting schemes. The galaxy would yet be his, the Dark Lord knew, for over all of the many things he was, from duelist to sorcerer and liar to leader, Darth Sidious was, above all other things, an architect. But not of wood, stone, or steel. No, nothing so mundane. Darth Sidious crafted using only the most powerful and the most potent of building materials. What he gave rise to through his construction would stand the test of time far greater than any single building ever could. For here, in his galaxy, Palpatine was the architect of nothing less than fate, and none would usurpate his glorious design.
Somehow it seems your secrets.
So, Erebus and the Cream would love to hang out? No. Okay, so Erebus has nothing on Creamy Sheev, okay? Erebus has legitimately nothing on Creamy Sheev at all. It is flat out just not even a contest, okay? Alex Magnus. Oh, wow. So, let's talk about this episode. Okay? Oh my god. Yeah, Magnus with no nerfing, yeah. Okay. So, what the contest between Tar Weiler and Palpatine came down to raw and absolute power versus absolute control. That was the biggest thing that I saw between the two of them, okay? Power versus control. One second, let me get to the end of this real quick. One second. What is this? Oh, that's awesome. Hold on. Yeah. So that came down to power versus control 100%. Now, you can say anything you want to. You can say You can say anything you want to about the power scaling between the two universes. One thing you can't take away from, like, not from Palpatine in any way, shape, or form, is Palpatine knows how very well to control himself, his abilities, the way he is perceived. He basically, in front of an entire council of the strongest Jedi that had existed in a generation, he basically just sat in front of them while they talked about finding him, and they didn't know it was him the entire time. It's like a person who is just like naturally strong, naturally fast. Knight versus samurai, same sword, just two different ways of using it. I don't agree with that. I don't think it'll be a knight versus samurai. I think it'll be a prodigy versus a master. A prodigy versus a master. That's what I think I see here. You have somebody that is a natural talent. A natural talent versus somebody who has spent all their life perfecting their skill. Also somebody who quite literally, both of them come from similar circumstances. If they were both outed for being what they actually are, they'd be hunted. Now, in Palpy's case, there's only a few that can really stand at the Palpatine. There's only a real few that can stand at the Palpatine. Rip Off Production, thank you. So we're all thinking Tarwaller's back on the ship with Anakin, Kale, and the Bad Batch, and that Inquisitor and her Custodes friend. I don't know. We don't know where he went. And he didn't go willingly. I do not think. I do not think that Tarwaller went willingly on that. But if anything, this just shows you that if there was one thing that was going to happen, it was going to be that Sidious would win based off pure control. Waller's far older than Palpatine, though. Yes, Hobbit. Yes, Hobbit. But here's the difference, okay? In 40K, a Psyker can be powerful, but at the same time, you're always worried about using that power to any real extent. You're always worried about using that power to any real extent. So, you don't have the ability to control and refine that. You cannot control and refine it. Meanwhile, on the other side, there is no worry with that with the Force. There is no worry that something's that's gonna start whispering in your ear to basically skullfuck your mind. There's no worry about that whatsoever. And with that worry not being a thing, that means that Sidious had no difficulty whatsoever in mastering his art. I love this. I love the comparison here. I love the absolute comparison here between control and strength. Don't forget that Sith knowledge possession knowledge transfers too. Where's Kitten in all this? Kitten's in the warp, my friend. Kitten's in the warp. Now, I'm hoping that the next time they fight, there's a little bit more talk about that kind of dynamic between the two. The difference between power and skill. Because that was a much different. Oh, thousands of years of learning? Well, that makes sense. Now, what's the problem? Oh my goodness. There are consequences to the dark side, but he's so in line with it, only brings him more power and strength as he becomes the voices. Yeah, he becomes the Senate. Horus has become a reality-bending solar system tier threat, body powered by 4 Chaos Gods, so much the God Emperor doesn't know how to defeat him. Yay. How would max power Luke fit into this? Luke would be the Alpha Plus Psyker, like, just pure absolute raw power. Luke would have been that. With the amount of training and the amount of ability that Luke had, he literally became a god. I mean, that is what we're looking at here. He's gonna pull some chaos shit out of his toy box? Yeah, pretty much. No kidding. The Dark King story and the Horus Heresy. I haven't reached the end of the book yet. I got about, I don't know, a third of it left. So, yeah. Black holes were toys to Luke in his prime? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. The one thing I don't like about Legends lore is how overboard they went. But, at the same time, yeah, I don't have any real problem with that. Holes are pretty much blanks to Jedi's. Nice. Luke might be Malkador level. I think he's more powerful than Malkador. I think he's strong. I think Luke is stronger than Malkador, okay? I think he's stronger than Malkador. Could Abeloth defeat Horus? Yes. Pre-Heresy Horus? Most definitely yes. Siege of Terra Horus? I might have doubts because he was massively empowered. Confused Guardsman, you put Slimearbo versus the answer is Slimearbo. I don't care who it is that you're putting against him. Should that mean that Tara have been more experienced dealing with Whisper, trying to distract him and corrupt him than Palps could have, especially given Tara would have to worry about it so much worse? Not necessarily. You got to remember, Sidious literally sits and lives under people specifically looking for him. who are the only people in the galaxy that would know how to look for him, and they can't find him. You think will win on Tar's ship? Anakin, the Custodians, Tar, or the... Right now, Anakin is still learning how to use his abilities. He's really starting to learn how to use his abilities. I don't know. Sly Marbo versus the Star Wars Demonic Space Teddies. Sly Marbo. Sly versus Fordo. Sly Marbo. Daddy Falcor. I love how in canon Palpatine dies by basically falling down the stairs the first time, and then a reverse card the second. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Yeah, Revan, you're right. Aboleth is literally a god of the Force. That's what Aboleth is. Damn dangerous. Hobbit, I tend to agree with you on this. I don't think that it makes sense to have Anakin fall to the dark side. I really don't see that being the case. I really don't see that being the case. You're pretty sure Horus is straight up confirmed to be strong, the Emperor in the new... Don't tell me about the end of the death. I'm still reading the damn thing, dude. Oh, Jesus. Sly versus Old Man. Sly. Sly versus Sly. Sly. I mean, it really does. It really is that, okay? As much as you like to see it, it's not... No one, not even Aboleth, could defeat a literal solar system potent threat like Horus. No. There's a difference between what Aboleth is and what the Chaos Gods are. At least in my own headcanon, the Chaos Gods wouldn't be gods as we describe them. Now, they do have godlike power, but they're not, in my own opinion, they're not even really sentient as we would understand it. They possess a lot of things that do correspond with sentience, but they're not actually sentient. They're not actually independent of thought. Like, Zinch can't decide he's going to take a month off and just go sit in the Bahamas and chill. You know? He can't do that. Anakin is likely to be trained by the Chaos Marine and what's the warp instead of his force by Palpy. I think that would actually leave him less powerful, to be honest with you. Aboleth is kind of like the Anti-Force. Iskander Kaon will make sure that Anakin's put on the right path and not do anything bad. It's Iskander Kaon. Aboleth versus the Emperor. The Emperor. It would really depend. It would be a close run thing. It would be a close run thing. The gods have more in common with GDP than anything. Tarwaller is Nosferatu. There's only two characters in Star Wars greater than Aboleth, the Supreme Maker, and Nakash, the Father of Shadows. It is a whole event. It is a whole event, okay? So, one of the things that I was looking at with this was, I didn't know how he would portray Tarwaller as Alpha Plus with Sidious being able to stand up to him, and I love what he did with that. You don't think Anakin will be weaker because apparently he's the Ever-Chosen? See, this is why I'm thinking that Anakin would be the first Alpha Plus. The first Jedi / Sith / Force user, I would consider Alpha Plus. Yeah, Padme has been saved. Yeah, Blue Look, I said it was okay. Me, Red-Eye. You think the Hutts are gonna fall to She Who Thirst? I think you're right about that. I think you're damn right about that. Alright, guys. I am going to step off, okay? I'm going to step off and I'm going to turn on the air conditioner here because it's hot. I'm hot. I'm boiling. I'm going to continue working in here. The next time you see it, it's going to look different than it does now. It's going to look far different. It's going to look far different. Ayla is about to be wearing leather. I'm just saying. In any case, Warpugs, it has been a banging good time these last 2 days. This was an excellent episode. This is the best fan fiction online right now. This is the absolute best fan fiction online right now. Full power Anakin versus Horus. Anakin destroys Horus, okay? Just destroys him. I'm just saying. Full power Anakin obliterates Horus. Warpugs, you guys have a great night. And I'll catch you guys next time.